Hello, everybody. It is so great to see you. Hi. We have several new people in this week. I'm so glad you're here. Thank you for joining us. We go live every Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'm so glad I get to hang out with everybody. Hello, hello, hello. Today we're doing Hope of Hartford block. It's a partial seam in the middle. I'm going to walk you through it. The pattern link for this block is down in the description box. Hello everybody, how are y'all doing? It's a little warmer here today. I don't know what the temperature is, but it is a lot warmer than it was last week. Hi everybody, it's so great to see you. Before we get started, okay, so this is what we're doing this week, right? Hope of Hartford. This is Maureen's favorite block from the traditional quilt block series that we did like 4 or 5 years ago. We did it as a 12-inch block then, and now we are doing it much smaller and paper piecing this go around, right? The first time we made it, we did traditional piecing, and today we're doing paper piecing. Hi, everybody. Hello, hello, hello. Before we get started, today, at the end of today's video, I'm giving away 4 sets of pokey tools. I pulled out all the stops on my budget. Got 4 sets of pokey tools that we are going to give away at the end of today's live. So if you have to leave before I do the drawing, come back to see if I draw your name, okay? And I will have specific instructions for how to get in touch with me if I do draw your name. And to enter for the pokey tools, you had to have commented on last week's live video, the simple knot block, right? So if you're here live and you haven't commented on that video, you could go real quick while we're sewing today's block and leave a comment. You have to comment pokey tools in the comment section to enter, okay? Also today, I've been so busy today, so productive. I finished filming the video for a Valentine's Day trivet, so keep your eyes open for this. I still have to edit the video and all that fun stuff, which I'll probably do tomorrow and Sunday. But isn't that lovely? Look how plump she is. Look at that quilting in there. You can see the quilting from the back. See that? Isn't she lovely? A nice little Valentine's Day trivet. Make your kitchen romantic for the holiday, right? So keep your eyes on that. Paper piecing again. If you can't tell, I'm in a paper piecing mode, and I'm really sorry if you don't like paper piecing. So sorry. Connie said, "You're such a big spender. We love you." I know. That's my kind of budget these days, y'all. The Dollar Tree. And okay, so some things you get from the Dollar Tree rock, right? Some of them are excellent finds. You're like, I can't believe this was only $1.25. And then other things you buy, you're like, I can't believe I wasted $1.25 on this. I'm just going to say, I tried the glue sticks from there. Some of y'all might love them, but the way that I use them, I did not think they were all that. I'm sorry if that hurt your feelings, but I did try the glue sticks from there, and for me, they're just not strong enough to do what I do with them. Do you know what I'm saying? Some things are an awesome find. Some things are not. But the pokey tools, awesome find. Thank you. You love my shirt. Thank you so much. All right. And what else? Oh, in case you missed it, look behind me. It's hard to tell because it's bright in here. But yesterday I finagled a set of fairy lights in that picture frame, which I about lost my sanity over. There was no reason why that had to be so difficult. But in case you missed it, I put up a video this week of Rudy the Rooster machine embroidery. This one I did on organza, but in the video I show you how to do embroidery. It was my first time on window screen, and it is so much fun. I can hardly wait to have some free time to do that again. And from you, while I'm sewing today's block, think back during the traditional quilt block series. What was one of your favorite quilt blocks that we've made, because the next several weeks we're going to be revisiting that whole series and all the quilt blocks. Not all of them, not 52 of them, but which one was your favorite that you'd like to see made smaller and into a paper piecing pattern like we're doing today? It would be much easier though if you leave that answer in the regular comments section, not during the live chat, although I will see it later on, but it'll be easier to come back to just the regular comment section to get some ideas, because I'm looking for a block idea for next week. Okay, all right. Hope of Hartford, let's come down here. Kind of said some things it just doesn't pay to go cheaper. And you know, the Elmer's glue sticks, they're really not that much. They're not that expensive anyway. You know what I'm saying? Okay, let me focus. Hope of Hartford. Isn't that cool? And before we get started, I just want to say a huge thank you to my moderators this week. I see Dari, I see Mimsy. Thank you for keeping an eye on the chat and answering questions and posting links and making sure everyone behaves. While I'm at the sewing machine, I miss a lot. And so just know that I'm not purposefully ignoring anybody. I just focus on getting this done, and then we chat at the end. So if you have something specific for me, and you're here at the end, we'll chat a little bit, and then I'll pull winners for the pokey tools, okay? Dawn said she did also not like the glue sticks from the Dollar Tree. So I'm not the only one. I'm sure they're good for just paper maybe and other things, but for doing this, I felt like it was not quite strong enough. Okay, Lisa, where are we at? This is what we're making today. I'm gonna put that off to the side. Here is the download, right? So if you're making this and you wanna come back to the video, all you have to do is dink, put your camera or your tablet on that QR code. It'll bring up this video. Hi, watching on the replay. And all the things to make this block into what we're doing today, right? Look, I gave you a quilt example. Isn't that so pretty? And then of course your paper foundations and your templates and a little template map, which is very helpful. Okay. I have already, what have I already done? I've already cut out my paper foundations. So that's what this is. And we cut those out on that outside line, right? So we have those. Here is my template map, and you'll see that I've colored it in because for me, it is so helpful. Like, I'm not gonna give it to you colored in because maybe for some people that's not helpful. But I have started making notes on my templates, on my foundations, on my little template map that help me stay organized, and I can see things more clearly for me, right? So for me, it was easy to color this in to help me stay, help me cut out my fabrics and things like that, right? I was drawing a blank. And I have my little strips for the border. I'm going to set those aside. And here are all of my fabrics. Like even on my little paper templates, before I even start, right? I go through and I kind of color this in. And then I'll look, how many bead templates do I need? And I count them and I write it on my template. I need 4 of them in the background color. So make notes if that makes paper piecing easier for you. And use these templates because they're very helpful. So I've already pre-cut all my fabrics for today. And I'm just going to pull them out. They're going to be everywhere because we're going to do some chain piecing to work through these parts fairly quickly. Okay. So what I have here is 5 foundations. Now this very center one we'll do at the end. Okay, it's just one piece of fabric. We'll come back to that. I'm going to set it right there. Hopefully I don't lose it. And we're going to focus on these right here. Okay. I have that. Which just shows me which one of these templates I'm working with, right? So y'all remember that I'm sewing through the line, so my process might be different if you're doing the freezer paper method for paper piecing. It might be slightly different, right? There's many different ways to do this, but I'll be sewing through the paper today. Now I do have my light pad, but it really messes with the camera, so I'm going to turn it on off the camera, because for me it is so helpful, but it also makes it very hard to see on the camera. Okay, but the first thing I'm going to do is start in the first position on all of these foundations. So looking at this, I know I need the A template, which is 4 of the background fabrics, and I'm going to go ahead and flip these over because we're placing our fabrics on the back side. Almost picked up the Dollar Tree glue stick. All right, and for me, I just find it helpful to put a little bit of glue in that first position. You could pin your fabrics in place if that's helpful for you, but off camera, I'm going to just lay this right over so that it's just 1/4 of an inch past that first sewing line, okay? Y'all have seen me do this several times. There we go. There we go. And I'm going to heat up this iron because I'm going to press this first fabric in that glue. It's going to make it a little bit stronger of a hold, but it should still release off pretty easy. And once I get this first fabric down, we really don't need that light pad so much. Let me give these a press real quick. I find the light pad is very vital for me. Do you know what I'm saying? Pressing, pressing, pressing. All right, so here are all of my pieces, and we're gonna flip this over. So this first piece I really don't have to trim because I lined it up so only 1/4 of an inch is hanging over that first sewing line. So now we're looking at position number 2. Position number 2 is a B template, and it's not the background pieces. It will be part of that star looking, right? See that right there? So now this is going to go like that, right? Right side facing up, right side facing down. And I'm going to take all 4 of these over, and we're going to be sewing right on that first line right there. And I'll just take these right on over there, and we're going to sew all 4 seams, okay? Now what I need to do is lower my stitch length because I was doing something else. I'm dropping it down to a 1.0 for my machine. You may have to adjust your machine accordingly. We're going to go ahead and sew these 4 first seams. I'm going to switch to my open toe foot so you can see a little bit better. I think it makes it a little bit easier for you to see from that angle. And we're just going to be chain piecing these. There really aren't a whole bunch of pieces for each one of these foundations, so it does go by pretty quickly. All right, and we're gonna go straight over to the pressing board, okay? And I'm gonna press these seams. Pressing board. There we go. I have my little... All right, so I'm gonna press these seams over that way towards the paper. Like so. Okie doke. And basically, we're just repeating these steps over and over again, right? So at this point, we're going to go ahead and trim the extra fabric from that second piece that we added, right? So from here on out, it's just as easy to use to add a 1/4 inch ruler, right? Versus your light pad. So I'm going to go ahead and fold the paper here. And we're going to be doing some trimming. We're going to trim both sides of this little triangle. So there's the first side. And then we're going to come over here and we're going to go ahead and trim this side up too. Okay. So 2 trims on this piece. And that's what each one of them will look like as we're going to move forward. I was trying to think if I have any stories to tell you, but I really don't. There's going to be this awkward silence as I'm trimming. I could tell you about the tallow that I just rendered. I say just, it took like 2.5 days to do it. But wow, it is so beautiful. It is so beautiful. I posted a picture of it on my Facebook today. Liz says, I love this block and paper piecing. Me too. Do you know why I love the paper piecing? Look at these little triangles. Can you imagine trying to cut those out accurately with your 1/4 inch seam allowance? And then, because of the foundation paper piecing, right, the foundation is keeping all these little triangles where they're supposed to be. It's helping them behave so they don't get wonky and stretch. I know all of this folding and trimming and all of this stuff seems like a lot of extra work for many people, and it is a little extra, right? But wow, the accuracy I get from paper piecing, I just don't get that accuracy in my normal traditional piecing. Lay flat. All right, this is the last one. You have to sort of tear where we sewed that first seam, right? Okay, there's my little offcuts. We're gonna just brush them off to the side. And what do we have next? So that was 2. Next, we're adding 3, which is the background B triangles. All right. So we're gonna bring these up. And now that we have folded this, you can see without using the light pad, right, the direction of that triangle. So when we bring our fabric in, we need to make sure that it is in that direction. See that? The long part of the triangle, the long part of the triangle. And that oftentimes is like the trickiest part of laying down a fabric too, right? So pay attention to your angles, and that'll be really helpful. So this piece will go like that, and then we're flipping it over and lining it up just like so. See that? It blends in because the background. But the next seam we're sewing is right there, and we're going to stop just a stitch or 2 right beyond that line right there. Okay, so I'm going to bring all of these over, and we're going to do these 4 seams. Oh, Savannah recently bought an add an 1/8 ruler for doing mini paper piecing blocks. I am intrigued because I'm loving these little tiny blocks. All these blocks, I'm just using a basket full of scraps from other projects. I don't have to cut into my yardage or nothing. So I'm loving these little tiny blocks. I'm gonna have to look into mini paper piecing blocks. All right, so here's our first one. And for these, I'm just going to cut the thread right at the machine and separate them, because starting or ending in the middle of a foundation is not really simple to chain piece. You know what I'm saying? So I just have my foundations right here and my pieces to add, and I can just add them all right at the same time. This is the last one. I feel a sneeze coming on. I'm going to apologize in advance if it happens. We're going straight over to the pressing board with these pieces. And we're just going to flip it right over. See that? Now, the awesome part is, because we trimmed this line a few minutes ago, and we lined this fabric up with the edge of that one, we don't have to trim before we start adding our next piece. So that's lovely. And this next piece is using the C template, right? And if we fold this up just a little bit, we see the long edge of the triangle is going this way, right? So our triangles will be added just like this. Long edge of the triangle, and we flip it right over. And we're going right back to the sewing machine, okay? All right, I'm going to take these over to the pressing board. I'm going to press these seams, and then we're going to take a quick little pause, see if I'm missing anything. I always feel like I'm missing something. Okay, here's our pieces. They look a little wonky, but we're going to trim all of that off here in just a second. I'm going to let these cool off for just a minute. I'm going to take a sip of my drink. Savannah says, I love being able to use up scraps for these blocks. Allows me more fabric for the donation quilts I've been doing without breaking the bank. Yes, every little bit helps, doesn't it? It really does. All right, everybody. Let me see. We're done with these templates. We're done with that. We still have this left to do. Save those because I want to make more of these blocks. Before we move on to the center part, I am going to just take a couple of minutes and we're going to trim all these pieces up because we have to do that before we move on, right? My hands have been extra shaky today. I noticed that earlier when I was making that trivet video. Whew. All right, so that's what she looks like all cleaned up. Isn't that pretty? There's one. Now, if there was an accurate way of stacking these and doing these trims multiple pieces at a time, wouldn't that be lovely? Especially like if you did the sashing parts for Sunday Stars, you know it's a pain in the butt to do all these trimmings, right? Wouldn't it be lovely if you could accurately stack them so that you know you are trimming accurately, but you're trimming several units at one time? Wouldn't that be lovely? I don't quite trust it though to do that. There was a string in that seam. I feel like the trimming part is probably one of the most time-consuming parts of doing all of this. Connie said, sewing on the lines reminds her of 9th grade economics. Me too, Connie. I miss that so much. Not that I'd go back to the 9th grade, though. Actually, I remember doing this in like 7th grade home ec. Mine was 7th grade, 7th and 8th grade. In 9th grade, I started taking business classes. And I didn't take home ec again until like my junior and senior year. And then it was, everybody was taking home ec because you got to make food. and eat. So we didn't do a whole lot of sewing from what I remember. We did a lot of cooking. I take it back. I did do some sewing in high school. I made my cousin a wedding present during my home ec class, and that was in high school. All right, so there's all 4 of those trimmed up perfectly. All right, and so we have the center piece, right? Using the D template, you can pre-cut your pieces, right? But we're going to be using the E foundation to adhere the fabric to, so that we can piece everything around it, right? Now, I will say, I don't know that it's absolutely necessary. You could use this foundation to cut your piece to the correct size and then take it off, but I really feel like the paper on this piece is lovely to have. You know what I'm saying? So I'm gonna put some glue, not in the seam allowance part, but right in the middle. And I'm gonna just press this fabric onto the paper like so. Right side facing down, your paper on the back side of your fabric. And I'm gonna dry this with my hot iron because I feel like that bond is a little bit stronger. I don't want that fabric separating from the paper, because now we are connecting all the pieces right around that square. Before we do that though, I have to trim it. Quiltmaker. Hi, Brenda. She took home ec 7th to 12th grade. She made her own clothes. That's awesome. I never got into making clothing. I don't know why that's so difficult for me. Thank you, Kathleen. Aren't they pretty? All right. We're going to trim up this little foundation. And then comes the fun part for me with this block, and that'll be sewing it right around this very center piece. Vicki, I see you're here. Happy birthday. I hope you had a good birthday. All right, and all of our trimming is done. I'm going to save that template for later. And now let's go ahead and arrange this block, right? And this can be helpful if you find it a little confusing doing the arrangement, right? So this goes in the center. This also could be confusing because it's a mirror image of what you see. Right? So we have like so, like so. Like so. Like so. Now let me scoot it up. I'm just going to leave this on the screen for a minute in case you need to take a screenshot or pause it because you're laying out your pieces. Isn't that so pretty? Delia started with Barbie clothing. Wow, that little baby clothes, that's tiny. What is the seam allowance on that clothing? Wow, Nita said, my mom had 4 daughters in 3 years. She made our clothes till we got out of high school. Wow. That's an accomplishment. Savannah's never tried partial seams with paper piecing, so that's what we're getting ready to do. All right, so what you'll notice is that none of these seams are the right size to just normally piece anything together to get started, right? But if we take this center block and we add it here after that seam allowance, that will be the same size as that seam right there. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to flip this right on over and we're going to bring it to the sewing machine. Some people like to start in the middle. Some like to start up here. I like to start sort of down here. And we're only sewing part of this seam, partial seam, right? So let's go ahead and go to the sewing machine and we're going to do that first. I still have that really tiny 1.0 stitch length, okay? I haven't changed that. And what we need to focus on is making sure that these pieces are lined up here and these pieces are lined up right there, okay? I'm going to come all the way down and start right about there, which you'll see as soon as I lower this presser foot, or as soon as it lowers. I'm going to take a couple stitches and do some back stitches and lock that seam, and then we'll move on. So there's our little seam. It's hard to see because I'm using a dark blue thread today. Now I'm not going to press this. I guess you could press this part of your seam nice and flat if you want, but I want to avoid pressing that part of that piece, okay? We still have some sewing left to do right there. So for now, I'm just going to finger press this over. See that? Just finger press and sort of pinch it. Did I add it to the wrong side? I did. I meant to add it down here and I added it right there. See that? Where's my little seam ripper? We're going to redo that. Hopefully I can cut this. Man, hopefully I can cut this without, because these stitches are so tiny. The reason for the decreased stitch length for paper piecing is I have a hard time saying this word, perforating. It's punching holes in that copy paper, right? It helps take the paper off in the end much, much easier. It also protects these seams because we're going to be tugging on this paper in some places. We don't want to mess with the sewn seams. And so the tighter stitch length really helps keep these pieces together, removing the paper in the end. But it also makes it more difficult for popping stitches if you sew your pieces in the wrong order. Oh, I did it. Praise the Lord. Let me just remove this thread. And now I'm going to show you the right way to add this piece. Don't add it over on this side. We want it down here and flip it over. And we're sewing here, not over here. We're sewing right there. Let's do that again. See where I'm stopping, and I'm going to do some back stitches. And cut that thread. I knew it looked funny as I was sewing. I was like, that looks funny. So now we can flip it over. And again, I'm just pinching that seam, just like that. And now when we bring it down here, it's the same length as that piece, right? So there's nothing partial about this seam. We're going to flip that over. We're going to line up these pieces, and we're sewing right on that line. And I like to get started right. I'm going to put my presser foot down. And I'm just going to make sure that this piece down here is lined up straight all the way down. And I'm not going to press this seam either. So you know what, while we're right here, I'm just gonna finger press this right on over. See that? How perfect is that? I'm trying to get it where you can see it really good. There you go. So I just finger pressed that piece over, and now that side lines up perfectly with the next piece. See that? So I'm going to go ahead and just stay right here and add this piece. Check to make sure that this little seam isn't flipping back because of a plate that you might have right there, right? We're going to stay right here again, and I'm just going to flip over that piece and just finger press that for now. Don't know why that's wonky. Probably because I picked a seam out. And we're going to bring in this piece. See that? No, let's come over here because I want to show you this. I don't want to rush past this part. All right, so we've worked our way. We've added the 3 pieces. This is where our partial seam is, down here. If we fold this back, you'll see that this seam is exactly the same. Don't forget, you have this that's folded over just a little bit. So sometimes what I like to do before adding this last piece, because see that? It is folded over. That fabric is folded over. And it's such a small, awkward little piece. If you try to force it over, you could do that, but it's really hard to keep it lined up nice and straight underneath the needle if you're doing that. So sometimes, before adding this piece, I'll come in. My seam runs from here to the edge. Sometimes I'll take a little pair of scissors and I will just snip this fabric right there. Okay, I just snipped that seam. So now this fabric, I didn't snip it close enough. It's gonna make me a liar. Will lay flat and I don't have to force it, right? I like to do that. You might find it helpful for you. You might not want to do that, right? But now it lays nice and flat. See that? And we can add this third piece in. So we'll flip it over and we're going to bring this to the sewing machine. Just checking and laying that seam flat on the bottom and lining it up with that bottom piece right down there. You're gonna have a little bit of thickness in the seam where these points come together right there. A little bit of thickness right there. All right, so let's go ahead and just fold this over. And do you see what I did? Today is not my day. Why? Do you see that? Yes, this is just a little eyebrow trimmer, right? I use it as a seam picker, but I wonder if I can get lucky and not cut the fabric like I did last time. I got lucky this last time. These stitches are so short. Oh, I'm doing it. 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 Whew. I get this thread out. You know what it is? One thing is I made my videos at 2 o'clock so that I would have time to have lunch. And then I could focus, right? Because I'd have some fuel, right? Some brain food. But today I didn't eat lunch, did I? No, I did not. I was making a video for the trivet. And before I knew it, it was time to get started here. So I've had nothing to eat. And it shows, look at this. I want to get these little thread pieces out before I move on though. Glory day. All right, Lisa. That is the correct way to put it on there. How did I not see that? Okay, let's flip that over and let's do this one more time. Whew. just fold this piece right on out your way. It helps you be able to see if you're lining up that piece down here at the bottom. It should be straight across right there and lined up right there. I think we got it right this time though. We did. Whew. Okay, so let's go ahead and just press that, finger press it right on over, right? That works really well. And now we're going to fold this over, which means you're going to have to just sort of fold and press this because it doesn't easily just bend over, right? You got to fold that paper. We have to finish where we left off right there to the end. Or in my case, I'm going to start off the end, get to where I started that seam, the first one, and pass it by just a smidgen and do a back stitch and cut the thread. And that is going to complete all the seams around this block. Donna said, how do you know when you are supposed to back stitch? I think I do it too much. Well, when you do back stitches within the quilt block, it causes a little bit of thickness in that seam, right? So I only like to do it when necessary. Like this partial seam, it is necessary because we don't want that seam to come out as we're pulling the pieces, working our way around, right? We don't want that little tiny seam to pull out. So a back stitch would be necessary. When I started here, I didn't back stitch because we're going to sew over that, right? So that's secure because the next seam sewed over top of it. And I don't back stitch along here because when we add this block to something else, like the borders in this case, when we do, it's going to sew over all the seams along the edge of this block and lock those in place. So I hope that makes sense. All right, let's come back here. And now we're just lining this up. I'll tell you, I love the open toe foot, but sometimes it's a pain in the rear end. It doesn't really grip the paper well, so I find myself doing this a lot. And also, it catches stuff. But I love that I can see so much better with it. It's like I have a love-hate relationship with it. All right, now I just passed by like 2 stitches where I started. I know it's hard to see, and I'm going to do a couple back stitches right there. And cut that thread. And when we do, oh, of course, that's flipped over. You know what? I'm going to cheat. No one will ever know. Isn't that so pretty? Let me take this over and give this a good press. Which my iron is probably falling asleep, and I'm showing you the wrong camera. Ah, see that? That is why that piece was too short on that paper. Remember that? That's okay. No one will ever know. Yeah, remember when I was adding a piece and it was like the paper was showing right here? Look at that. This was not pushed over all the way when I pressed it. So now there's a little bagginess there. In the big scheme of things, you can't tell though, right? All right, so let me go ahead and just start picking off paper because I'm gonna add the borders on this. And the thing is, I've sewn this into a little block several times, so I don't know that I'll spend the time doing that each and every week. You know what I'm saying? I'm gonna add the borders. But I think y'all get it by now, right? Dun, 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 dun. I'm so excited to give some of these Toki tools away. You know what I did during the trivet video that I thought was super helpful that I should have done today? Is before I added the next piece, I removed the paper from the seam allowance, that part. And then I didn't have to poke under and grab that out. And that was kind of lovely. I do want to add the borders, at least, so you can see what this looks like as a finished. Actually, this block is the Hope of Hartford, but I'm adding little borders to mine, right? See the little tugging and the fabric will pull sometimes? That's why the shorter stitch length is really nice. That's the center part where I added the glue stick. See that? It will come out, but it's okay if you leave a small little paper bit there. All right. There she is again. Now let me clean up this paper mess because that is a disaster. And then I have my little border fabric. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and just pre-cut these first two pieces. Just a little bit longer. And I am definitely gonna change my presser foot over to a 1/4 inch pressing foot. And I'm gonna change my machine over to a 1/4 inch seam allowance too. Okay. Y'all are so sweet in the comment section. Y'all are so nice. Okay, let's switch this foot. Let me switch this stitch. 1/4 inch seam allowance. And in the first two little borders I'm adding, we're sewing the complete seam edge to edge. I love these little tiny borders on these blocks. I love that we don't have to do little bindings on each of all these little blocks. Okay, let's come over here. I'm gonna go ahead and just trim up these two sides before I even press this, because I feel like that's the easiest way for me. We're gonna press these two borders. Let's go ahead and just set those seams first though. I try to be in a really good habit of setting my seams before I move on and press them, right? But a lot of the times I forget. We're pressing. These little borders don't want to lay flat when you press them. If you've made this little block and you've added the little borders, have you noticed that? They want to just pop up like that. So now we're going to add two more borders, right? And in one of them, we're going to leave the opening for turning this little block right side out. And if, let me press that because that is not flat. If this is the first time you have seen any of these tiny block videos, then what I urge you to do is to check out the playlist in the description box down below, right? There's a playlist for the tiny house blocks. I've grouped them all together in their own playlist. And it shows you how nice it is to have the little opening right here versus on the outside of this block, right? That's better. We're going to take this to the sewing machine. sewing machine. S's are hard for me. Have y'all noticed that? That's okay, because I'm supposed to get my new teethies next week. Keep your fingers crossed for me that it happens. All right, on this first one, we're going to sew all the way. I really don't need that because there's some extra fabric to start in. And on this one is where we're leaving that opening. I'm just going to stop there and do some back stitches. And cut that thread, and I'm going to jump down here. And that's our little borders. Now I'm going to just set the seams real quick on this before we move on, because I always forget to do that. I'm trying to get in a good habit of doing that. All right. Before I move on, let's just cut those little tails off, right? The extra. Oops, almost messed up again. There we go. All right, and before we press these seams, Glenda says, I love this block so much. Me too. Isn't it pretty? Now we have to find the border that has the opening, and it's right there. It's really hard to see. See, that thread just wants to blend in with this fabric. But right there's a gap in that stitching, right? I find it helpful. You don't have to do this part, but I find it helpful just to run a little bit of glue stick right along the edge there. And now we can flip that over. And tappy, 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 see that? And that glue is going to hold that, and we're going to press these two seams. It's going to give you a really nice, clean finish, right? And let's press this other border. Now I'm going to press this whole entire block real quick. Just from the front, nice and flat. I have little baby threads where I cut those seams everywhere. All right. That is so pretty. I love this fabric. Let's bring this back. So here is my finished block with the borders, right? And if we feel around, because I'll lose track, Where is it? Oh, there it is. There's our little opening for turning. There we go. See that? That's a good little size opening for turning, right? Now, y'all, I feel like repeating the next steps every single time we meet gets kind of redundant, right? Y'all know what to do from here, and I'll show you the fabrics that I picked out for the back of mine. Isn't that going to be so pretty? It's the same color as this in here. At this point, I have my batting, my back fabric face up, and my block is going to go down just like this, and we're going to sew all the way around, not leaving an opening, trim the corners, and flip it right side out, right? So if you haven't seen that done, right, this is your first time viewing, I do it for all the blocks leading up to today, but I feel like from today on, it's just sort of redundant. What I really want you to see is this and everything leading up to this, right? But isn't that just so pretty? I actually like this one better than the first one I made. I'll bring back the first one, and you can see one that's finished, right? So there it is, all finished. And this one I did quilt within the little triangles right here. See that? So that's my first one. Well, that's pretty too though, isn't it? And there's my second. So there we go. Connie, my opening is right here. See that? So that when I flip it like this, I sew all the way around the edges. And I don't have any tricky little opening I have to turn to close up along the edges, which I am horrible at. I am so bad at trying to get an opening along the seam of something turned in pretty so that when it's finished, I can't tell where the opening was. It always looks messy for me. So this way, I don't have to. I can sew all the way around, and there's my opening right there. And when, see how perfect all my edges are on this? The opening wasn't along the edge. It was right along here. See? If you've missed it, check out last week's block. I show the whole entire process. Savannah says, the partial seam blocks have been so helpful to watch you make. I'm so glad. A lot of the times I was scared of partial seams for a long time. And I think it takes doing it a couple times to get better at it, right? But I finally have gotten to a point where my pieces are perfectly square in the middle, right? But that didn't happen the first couple of times I did it. So if you try it and your piece is a little wonky in the middle, it's okay. It takes practice. Keep going and do it a couple more times and you will get here too, right? But I think next week we're not going to do a partial seam block. I'll pick one that doesn't have, that's no partial seams in it. All right. Now, pokey tool time. Let me move this out of the way. I still have a little bit of work left to do on that. So what I have, I've pulled out all the stops, y'all. I have 4 pokey tool sets, and I would love to send you one. Let me pull this camera up. And before I pick the winners, I want to put my email address on the screen, because if you see your name come up and you get excited, don't start typing your address here on YouTube. Send me an email right there with your address, okay? And I will get it out to you as soon as I get your information. Mary Jo said, is it hard to make a foundation paper piecing pattern? I don't think so, but I've done it a lot, right? So I was able to pull in, looking at the thumbnail from the YouTube video where we did this block originally at 12.5 inches, I was able to go into EQ8 and just look at that and draw this block in EQ8 and turn it into a foundation paper piece pattern, right? This block might be in EQ8, but I looked and I couldn't find it. It might be in there. They have lots of quilt blocks already in there, but I couldn't find it, so I drew it just by looking at the picture from when we did it a few years ago. Just like any other software, there's a learning curve, but you know, working with it, it gets easier. All right, so I'm going to share my screen. It's going to look a little bit hectic for a minute. And we're going to go over to the comment picker, random comment picker. And I'm going to wait a minute just to make sure that everything looks good on the screen. Still waiting, still waiting. Wow, it's a longer delay today. It's a lot longer. Y'all hold on a second. Here goes, I'm switching the screen. Okay, you see it perfectly. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come over to last week's video, the simple knot block. That's where I asked you to comment Pokey Tool in the regular comment section, right? This was last week's live. And I'm going to copy that address. Copy. And we're going back to the random comment picker. And I'm going to paste that URL right here. And I'm going to say fetch. And I'm going to change it from anything goes. We used a keyword, and the keyword was Pokey Tool. So it's going to pull out all the comments that used this little phrase, and we're going to hit continue. Now I want to get a piece of paper so I can write down some names, even though I guess I could come back to this video. All right, there are 70 unique comments that used that phrase last week. And we're going to pick our first winner. Mary. Mary said, Pokey Tool, I can't wait to watch you revamp some of the quilt blocks you did a few years ago. Yay, Mary, you get one of the very sought after Pokey Tools. Mary Hedrick. Congratulations. That's exciting. All right, Miss Mary, send me an email, lisacapenquilts@gmail.com with your address. Now we're giving away 3 more, so I'm going to pick another winner. Diane. Miss Diane, you got a Pokey Tool. She said, Pokey Tool, love watching your videos, so fun, and always learning something new. Send me your address, Diane, okay? All right, we have 2 more. So Terry. Hello, So Terry, you got a Pokey Tool set. She said, hi, Lisa. Thank you for today's live. That Pokey Tool is very useful for weeding paper off a scan and cut mat, right? Yes, it is. It is so helpful. Anyway, have an awesome weekend. All right, Miss So Terry. Send me your address and I'll send you a Pokey Tool set. And we've got 1 more. Peggy. Congratulations. Peggy said, Pokey Tool, thank you for the chance. All right, I just wrote down all 4 winners. So we have, let's come back here. Me. There we go. Mary Hedrick, Diane, So Terry, and Peggy. Y'all send me an email. Right there's my address, and I'll send you a set of Pokey Tools. Let me pull this screen up so I can see y'all's comments. There we go. Congratulations, everybody. That's exciting. You get 2 pokey tools in one set. So you could keep them both, or you could share one with a quilting friend that you have, right? Because I'm going to tell you, I'm still using the same pokey tool that I got originally years ago. But you could have one at your workstation and one somewhere else because it's a multi-purpose tool, right? You could be using it for paper craft somewhere else too. Yay! I'm so excited for y'all. Now I'm going to put this up where I can see it right here at my desk. And I'm going to keep an eye out in my email. And yeah, I hope everybody that sees this and reaches out. Thank y'all so much to my moderators. Y'all are awesome. Laurel says, is that the name of the actual tool? No. At the Dollar Tree, it's called a Crafter's Square piercing and scoring tool set. Oh, you know why there's 2 in here? I am a goofball, man. I never even noticed this. You know why there's 2 in here? Almost said a bad word. Sure enough, there's one that's got a fine tip and one with a bigger tip. Years. I never noticed that. It says fine and medium point needles. Sure enough, I mean, these are the ones I've had forever. One is thicker than the other one. Now, how come I never noticed that? So you might want to keep both of them for that purpose. Cheryl, we would definitely be praying for you. I'm hoping that you start feeling better for sure. And I think it was your kidneys I saw earlier in the chat. It went by pretty quick, but yes. Different ends. Yeah, see, you might could see better on my shirt like that. See, they're both pointy, like little needles, but one is thicker than the other one. So really, using it and how I'm using it and paper piecing, it doesn't matter because all you really care about is the pokey part, right? But if you are poking holes, let's say you're making a journal, right? And you're poking your signatures so you can thread and sew it into your journal, right? I use this to poke holes through my paper. So there's one hole. And there's the other hole. See the difference? One makes bigger holes than the other. I never even noticed that before. Yay, so Terry's here. Yay, you emailed me already. That's awesome. I am very sorry about the ads, y'all. Know that the couple seconds you watch an ad before you hit skip helps pay for my time in creating these patterns for you and the knowledge that I'm sharing with you during these videos. I'm so sorry. I know it might come at an inopportune time, and I have it set up so that it's a different time for everybody. And I have it set so that the ads come on as least frequent as possible. But it's either that or I go get a job and do something different with my life. And I would much prefer coming and hanging out with y'all. And ad blockers are awesome, y'all. But can I just be candid with you for a second? Everybody that you watch make videos depends on the little tiny bit of ad revenue to make it worth their time to be able to teach you information for free, right? So as a watcher, an ad blocker is awesome. As someone who makes content teaching, ad blockers really stink. And I'm not just saying that for me. I'm going to say that for every content creator you like watching on YouTube. I love you so much. Please don't take offense to that. I love you. All right, y'all. It is Friday, and I've not had my lunch yet. And the sun came out. Earlier, it was all cloudy for like most of the day, but the sun came out right before the live started. Where was I going with that? I need some food. And then I'm going to go start editing this video because look how dang cute this is. I'll make Harlan some kind of nice little casserole for Valentine's Day and set it on my trivet. But then it's so dang cute, I don't want to just use it for Valentine's Day. I might hang it up on the side of the fridge or something, because isn't that so pretty? All right, everybody, I love you so much. Get this pattern while it's free. I love you. It's in the description box, the link. Monday, I'm putting it right in the Etsy store. I love you. Have a great weekend, okay? If you want a Poke Tool set with 2 different size needles, send me an email and I'll get it out. I'll pack it up tomorrow. I'll ship them out Monday if you email me over the weekend. Okay?